and you guys asked me to do another one. I believe Swamp Stories has another one going back to my original stomping grounds, which is Alabama, where they're going to be interviewing Honeycomb Brazy and doing the story about him. And I don't like the actual title. They called him Alabama's dumbest demon, and I don't know, but maybe they got more information than I do, because they usually do. So without wasting time, let's get straight to it.
So you pretty much immune to getting in like that shit didn't really phase you. You didn't think about
it. You in big trouble. Boy, your is in big trouble. You know you in big trouble. You so I can't come to the city. You know you're in big trouble, big dog. Yeah. And I'm gonna keep my spirit for real. Don't play with me on really like that. Don't play with me on really like that.
Welcome back to another episode of Swamp Stories. For this one, we dive into one of the craziest ones I've ever covered. I know I say it before every video, but this one is actually beyond comprehension. From family betrayal, friends crossing friends, rap beef, and so much more. We follow the entire life story of easily hip-hop's biggest goon. And I promise you everything in this video will absolutely blow your mind. This one is Brazy. But before we get into it, let me run the intro. The story begins in Mobile, Alabama, a place you've probably never heard of and have definitely never been to. But despite it being relatively unknown, it's actually a very historical city that should be taught in schools. And for that reason, we start off with some much needed.
And once again, I love Swamp Stories because he always gives you the background on, the place we're diving into. Mobile, Alabama was probably still is a thriving industrial town when it first inception of the city. My grandparents are from there. I've been there numerous times. I love Alabama, man. We from out there, man. It's cool, man. Let's get it.
City that should be taught in schools. And for that reason, we start off with some much needed and very important history. For those who are unfamiliar, the Atlantic slave trade was made illegal in 1808 by the United States government. This meant that slaves could no longer be imported to the country, a very monumental moment in history.
Okay.
But despite this great progress, many slave owners in Alabama decided to completely disregard the law. So for 52 years, illegal slave ships were still arriving to the port of Mobile.
Oh, wow.
Thankfully, though, in 1860, the United States government finally decided to crack down. They successfully captured the very last slave ship to ever approach U.S. soil. And after seizing it, they took the 110 captives and dropped them off in North Mobile. They were essentially given a plot of land called Africatown, and they were told to figure it out. This is what makes it so unique and interesting. Over the next 100 years, they basically created their own community and even spoke their own language at home. And with very little outside interaction, they built their own homes, schools, restaurants, and many.
This is so beautiful. I have lived all this time on this planet and did not know this story. This is wild. This is beautiful. I didn't know this even happened in our history.
The next 100 years, they basically created their own community and even spoke their own language at home. And with very little outside interaction, they built their own homes, schools, restaurants, and many businesses. Yes, it was a very poor community, but the important part is that they owned and built everything they had. And if you know anything about economics, you know that ownership is the only way to a successful community. I say
big facts. What I do know about what happened in Mobile and certain parts of Alabama is what they did was, as soon as they realized the Black community was actually not only staying alive, but they were actually sustaining themselves by also building themselves up in industrial trade and also having a lot of goods. And once they saw they were more than a thriving community, what they did was they actually forced them to leave. And then they just took all their belongings. And not only did they take their belongings and land, they even took their last names. And they took their identities and then started calling themselves that. And then it's a crazy thing that happened to us as Black people all throughout history. But hopefully it mentions it.
Poor community, but the important part is that they owned and built everything they had. And if you know anything about economics, you know that ownership is the only way to a successful community. I say that to say that the potential was there, but sadly it wouldn't be there for long. In the 1950s, the United States government introduced a controversial plan called urban renewal. Essentially, they designated certain areas.
Remember the last video we watched when the government decided to fix something? Oh, let's do a housing co-op. Like now they said urban renewal. Urban. Always monitor that word whenever they say that about people of our melanin. They always, whenever they mention us, they said, oh, we want to do something new. Something urban. You don't do anything urban in Ventura. You don't do anything urban in Irvine. Beverly
But
Hills.
sadly, it wouldn't be there for long. In the 1950s, the United States government introduced a controversial plan called urban renewal. Essentially, they designated certain areas as decaying and used this to seize all of the property. Obviously, this is a violation of property rights and the Constitution, but back then it wasn't seen that way. So they went to various neighborhoods across the country and pretty much bulldozed them to the ground. Whether it was the Fillmore in San Francisco, the 7th Ward in New Orleans, or Mobile, Alabama, they pretty much went to a bunch of neighborhoods and destroyed them. And by the end of the 1950s, over 75% of Africatown was completely demolished. The community sadly had to watch everything they built be torn to the ground. The deep history and
not only did they have to watch everything they built be torn to the ground, they had no recourse. Like nowadays, at least in 2024, you at least have the option to go get a lawyer, go to your city councilman, try some avenues before you're denied. Back then, they had to just sit there and watch it, like, and hope their house wasn't next. That's not cool, man.
Watch everything they built be torn to the ground. The deep history and cornerstones of the community were now replaced by endless public housing. And on top of this, they even changed the neighborhood's name from Africatown to the Happy Hills. Like, damn, we can't even keep the name? Well, to me, urban renewal is one of the biggest stains in American history as it destroyed so many communities. It essentially turned homeowners and business owners to welfare recipients overnight, and as you would expect, the government did not take care of what they replaced it with. The residents were exposed to broken ceilings, mold, and rodent-infested apartments, and on top of this, there were no local businesses left in the area.
Yo, man, can you imagine how wild that must be? Don't even imagine the time frame. It was 1950s, they said. Can you imagine that being 2020 and you have a local shop, like say you like to sell muffins, or maybe that restaurant we always go to, it's next to some little shop called Nothing Bundt Cakes. Like, can you imagine like they were just over there making a living, it's a family-owned business, and all of a sudden they said, oh yeah, we're gonna do some urban renewal. We're gonna just knock all your situation out the way. Your house too. Knock that out the way. But hold on. Hear us out. We have these projects you can move into and you can get on the welfare since you're not making any money with your business. We got you. What? Like, that doesn't. Somebody in the comments let me know how much sense that makes, because I'm just hearing it as somebody who has a business, who is has a family. Like, that just sounds crazy. Like, it sounds crazy.
It did not take care of what they replaced it with. The residents were exposed to broken ceilings, mold, and rodent-infested apartments, and on top of this, there were no local businesses left in the area. So as you would expect, this led to some bad consequences, and Happy Hills became an extremely rough and dangerous area. Unlike LA, where the hoods have two-story homes, manicured lawns, and palm trees, this right here is the real trenches. And in this environment...
And you know what? He did bring up a very good point. Like, the community in LA might not be the most financially secure, but at least the environment they live in is houses, lawns. It looks beautiful. They're palm trees. Like, it might not be the most safest, but at least aesthetically, it's okay looking. But this is looking crazy.
It became an extremely rough and dangerous area. Unlike LA, where the hoods have two-story homes, manicured lawns, and palm trees, this right here is the real trenches. And
that is nothing but the definition of dilapidated. Let me go ahead and see that.
Two-story homes, manicured lawns, and palm trees. This right.
I hope that's not an actual photo of the surroundings. That's
Here is the real trenches. And in this environment, there's no squabbling enemies or catching DPs. It's straight cutthroat at all times. The smallest disagreements can go straight to lethal consequences, and there's no such thing as a fair fight. It's truly a sad circumstance, but it's been the way of life in Happy Hills for quite some time. Trust me when I say that this environment is no joke, and that takes us to the early 1990s. During this period, Happy Hills had a local kingpin by the name of Honeycomb Jones. Honeycomb was known throughout Alabama as a serious hustler in the streets of Mobile. But this would not be an easy journey for him, as he was in and out of jail throughout the 90s. And with all these years in jail, he was leaving behind his bloodline, specifically a son born in 1994. This would be his son named Nashawn Jones, who's commonly known as Little Honeycomb. As you would expect, Little Honeycomb had a rough childhood coming up, with both parents in and out of prison and hopping from house to house. On top of this, he was raised in real poverty and always had to fend for himself. To many of us at home, this is beyond comprehension, but to Little Honeycomb, this was basically normal. This is because his friends, classmates, and families in the neighborhood were pretty much going through the same things. This is just the sad reality of growing up in Happy Hills.
Yeah, everybody going through it, man.
Well, now we focus entirely on the life of Nashawn Little Honeycomb Jones.
Oh, let's get
Growing up, Nashawn had two best friends from the neighborhood who he rolled with every day. These would be Ladarius Moore, also known as Stank, and Dedrick Thomas, also known as Day.
I was gonna say RP Stank. I do know Honeycomb's history. He was actually touted to be actually the next big thing coming out of Mobile, since they haven't had like a big rapper. So I'm kind of familiar with his history because, you know, the family side angle. But yeah, let's get to Stank and the whole situation, how everything didn't go out.
Growing up, Nashawn had two best friends from the neighborhood who he rolled with every day. These would be Ladarius Moore, also known as Stank, and Dedrick Thomas, also known as Day.
Okay.
According to people close to them, Honeycomb was always the leader of the group and was also the wildest too. He wasn't necessarily mean or aggressive, but he loved to test people's limits. And because of this, he was constantly getting in trouble at school, and he was also arrested at a very young age. Specifically, at 10 years old, he decided to break in rooms to go and ride around with go-karts with his friends. He knocked over a bunch of items, and police came to arrest him within 15 minutes. But due to his age, all police could do was take him home to his parents to be disciplined.
I ain't gonna lie. That probably is the dumbest thing to do, like, but that actually sounds like one of the funnest things to do, man. I just want to go break into a place and just ride some go-karts. Like, you're not doing anything bad, man. They call that just being rambunctious as a youth. Like, it's definitely dumb. It gives you a jail record. Not advocating for people to do that. Just saying it sounds kind of funny.
But due to his age, all police could do was take him home to his parents to be disciplined. But here's the problem. Nashawn's father had recently been sentenced to 20 years in prison, and his mother was in jail as well. So police had to take him to his aunt on his dad's side.
Wait.
But here's the problem. So police had to take him to his sentence to 20 years in prison, and his mother was in jail as well. So police had to take him to his aunt on his dad's side, which wasn't exactly the best environment. In fact, it may have been the worst possible place for him. So let me break it down. When Big Honeycomb went to prison, money in the family pretty much dried up. I mean, it wasn't like they were balling beforehand, but now it was really, really bad. So in order to put food on the table, Big Honeycomb decided to keep running his organization from behind bars. And in order for this to work, he elected certain family members to run everything for him on the streets.
Makes sense.
One of these family members would be his nephew, who he put in charge of keeping track of the money. This nephew is his sister's son, which is the family who adopted Nashawn when he went off to prison. So as you would imagine, keeping the money in the family and close to his son was the best option overall. But still though, trusting a poor teenager from the projects with thousands of dollars is always a risky move. Like, hey, I know I'm your nephew, but I gotta eat too. So it was only a matter of time before things went wrong. After just a few months, Big Honeycomb started to believe that his nephew was pocketing the money. He was pissed, feeling betrayed, and he wanted to do something about it. In his mind, even though it's his nephew, disloyalty is always unforgivable. So believe it or not, he allegedly calls up one of his goons in Mobile and tells him to put in work. Now, who is this goon, you might be wondering? Well, this would be none other than his 13-year-old son, Nashawn Little Honeycomb Jones.
Hold on, man. I don't like the terminology that he just used real quick. He said, man, he had to call one of his goons. That's not a goon. That's your son, bro. That's wild. Like, and you want him to actually unalive your nephew, which happens to be his cousin. That sounds crazy.
And tells him to put in work. Now, who is this goon, you might be wondering? Well, this would be none other than his 13-year-old son, Nishan Little Honeycomb.
I'm not gonna lie. The rumors that I heard were nothing near this story. This is why I always watch Swamp Stories, because he does the research and get behind the bullshit cover stories. So this is interesting, man. This is crazy, because what I heard was what I actually heard originally was allegedly Brazy was in a hotel room having sex with another chick that was his girlfriend, and the dude kicked the door in, and Honeycomb had to defend himself. That's how he beat the case. But if this is really what transpired, this is crazy and interesting to know. Let's get it. This is crazy. It's crazy. Was that muted? My bad. Accidentally hit the mute button.
Be none other than his 13-year-old son, Nishan Little Honeycomb Jones.
You know, Pop said run it, so you gotta do it. It's just do it. It's done. It really does.
So a 13-year-old Honeycomb decides to hop off the porch for his pops, and here's how it goes. He's hanging with his friends in Happy Hills, and he somehow gets his hands on a Blake. He then starts walking to his aunt's house in Plateau looking for his cousin. Because he's a leader, all his friends tag along with him with no idea what he's about to do. He then finds his cousin outside with his squad, and he decides to walk right up to him. His cousin thinks he's about to dap him up, and he has no idea what's about to go down. And in front of everyone, Honeycomb whips out and makes a wild decision. Everyone is shocked, and Honeycomb and his friends run back to Happy Hills. He assumes that his cousin is dead, and this is when reality kicks in. What in the world did I just do? Did I really just claim the life of my own cousin? And now that I did this, my aunt will probably be pissed, so where can I even sleep? And on top of all this...
Yo, that's something I didn't even think of in the forefront. That man told you to actually unalive the child of the mother you're staying with. You live there. You just unalived, and then what? You're supposed to be a real demon and go back to the house and wonder, like, oh yeah, what happened to your son? I'm sad too. Like, that sounds wild. That sounds wild.
My aunt will probably just claim the life of my own cousin. And now that I did this, my aunt will probably be pissed, so where can I even sleep? And on top of all this, if I get arrested, I'll never see the light again. As a last resort, Honeycomb decides to make a run for it. So at 13 years old, he goes on the run, hiding from both his aunt's family and the police. We don't know the specifics, but somehow he fends for himself for months on end.
Okay.
Wow, this is crazy, and I don't think I've seen anything like it.
Yeah, when a 13-year-old commits a homicide and then goes on the run from the people who were taking care of him and the police. And for months, he was good.
It's on end. Wow, this is crazy, and I don't think I've seen anything like it. When I was 13, I was too scared to take public transportation and nonetheless survive on my own while ducking police. Oh, and I've never had my father ask me to eliminate my own cousin. So before you demonize little Honeycomb, you have to put yourself in his shoes.
Yeah.
Like at 13 years old, you'll literally do anything for your father. On top of this, he says that he never really wanted to do it and even regrets it to this day.
Paralyzed my own cousin, took a hit from a pop. Like, I was young then, though. Like, right now, I don't know if I still do that again. Because I still with Buzz. It was just a misunderstanding. But, I would have thought better about it. But I was young. Then my dad.
Okay. You have to pause it for the dialect of how they talk. What I got from that, the biggest thing was that when he shot brother, he said he's paralyzed. I don't think he died. I don't know. Let's go back.
Then, though. Like, right now, I don't know if I still do that again. Because I still with Buzz. It was just a misunderstanding. But, I would have thought better about it. But I was young. Then my dad is telling me to run it. So, dad is telling me to run it. They're finna run it. You know how that go.
You can even see it in his face that he really regrets doing it.
Whoa, wait. You shot your cousin?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like on accident?
Nah, like on purpose. Him and my dad.
That's crazy. You can see that he's not really feeling what he did. He's not really. Okay, last video we watched a lot of old block people. They'd be like, as soon as they unalive somebody, they'd be like, we smoking on this. They laughing. you can see the pain in his face. Like that's not something that he's okay with. Like they're laughing, but he's not okay with that.
You shot your cousin?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like on accident?
Nah, like on purpose.
You
Him and my dad, some shit with him and my dad, you know. Some money came on missing it with my dad.
As crazy as this already is, while Honeycomb was on the run, more tragedy would strike in his family.
What? Oh yeah. Oh wait, hold on. They're talking about something earlier. Okay, cool. I ain't gonna lie. Honeycomb went through a lot of effed up ish. I ain't gonna lie.
Run, more tragedy would strike in his family. November 1st, 2007. Little Honeycomb happens to have an older cousin in the neighborhood named Robert Lucas, also known as Slick. Well,
okay, sorry, my bad. I was mistaken earlier. The original situation that I was talking about was this situation. I didn't know that he had a previous situation where his dad told him to do that. That was wild. I just learned about that. I thought this was his first jump off the porch moment, and I wasn't aware of that. All right, so let's go.
Happens to have an older cousin in the neighborhood named Robert Lucas, also known as Slick.
Yeah,
well, on this afternoon, Slick and his friends happened to be hanging out in the Josephine Allen projects like any other day. They're standing around laughing and playing music in the parking lot. The commotion pisses off one of the neighbors in the projects, and she decides to call 911. She tells police that there's a group of young men hanging outside selling illicit products. So at 5 p.m., a Mobile sheriff named Paul Birch pulls up to the projects. Slick notices him rolling through, and he decides to turn around and sprint. This is because he believes the officer is there to serve a warrant on him, but that's simply not the case. Either way, his decision to run does not serve him well. When the officer notices Slick running away, he decides to get out of his car and go chase him. He chases him through the projects, and that's when Slick trips and falls on his face. Because of this, the officer catches up to him and decides to draw down. Unfortunately, the situation ends in the worst way possible. Slick gets hit twice in the back, twice in the shoulder, and twice in the chest.
What the
and
fuck?
Sadly, he wouldn't make it after being rushed to the hospital. The situation ends in the worst way possible. And decides to drop.
They didn't say he had a weapon. They didn't say he turned around and was aggressive. You got hit 2 times in the back. And then, okay, I'm sorry. I don't know if you guys know about telemetry and how things like that work, but if you get hit 2 times in the back, that means, and I'm sorry, 1 time in the shoulder, that means you got hit, pow, pow, in the back, and you spun around from the velocity of the bullets. And that's why you got hit another 2 times. That man was trying to unalive you for real. That's crazy. He shot you down like a dog. I don't condone that. That's crazy.
Decides to get out of his car and go chase him. He chases him through the projects, and that's when Slick trips and falls on his face. Because of this, the officer catches up to him and decides to draw down. Unfortunately, the situation ends in the worst way possible. Slick gets hit twice in the back, twice in the shoulder, and twice in the chest.
Dang.
And sadly, he wouldn't make it after being rushed to the hospital.
Damn.
Obviously, it was a tragic situation, but it was also controversial. The witnesses believed that Officer Paul Birch was not justified in his actions. They all rallied to get him arrested, but nothing came of it. This is because the officer stated that Slick pointed a blick at him while he was falling, and because of this, he had to do what he had to do to survive. The sheriff and the district attorney agreed, so they both declined to charge.
Okay, I just want to know if there was a weapon found on the scene. It's still effed up, but maybe they are justified in dropping the charges. But I never heard anything about a weapon found on the scene.
Had to do to survive. The sheriff and the district attorney agreed, so they both declined to charge him. The entire Happy Hills community was pissed. To them, it was a clear case of murder, and they all decided to protest. So for days on end, the community gathered together and marched the streets of Mobile. This eventually caught the attention of the FBI and the Department of Justice, so they were forced to investigate.
Okay.
But here we are 17 years later, and no charges were ever brought to the table. And on top of this, Paul Birch is currently the elected sheriff of Mobile County.
Saying new sheriff in town.
Okay, so what that means is, I don't know if you guys are familiar with like local politics or local police procedure. Sheriff of that town is pretty much like the chief of police, like in our cities, like, you know. So not only did you unalive somebody, they gave you a promotion after 15 years. That's crazy.
Paul Birch is currently the elected sheriff of Mobile County.
A new sheriff in town. Sheriff-elect Paul Birch sworn in today and is now sheriff of Mobile County. The swearing in got underway around 4 at the Crown Hall on Dolphin Street. Sheriff-elect Birch is replacing retiring Sheriff Sam Cochran.
Honeycomb would post about Slick on Facebook, and his friends are not too happy about Paul Birch.
Hello.
Drama.
One thing, I'm going to say something right now. It might be very controversial, but I always was wondering about like how another black person is so free and willing to kill another black person for disrespect. But if it's a police officer or something like that, you draw the line there. Like that's where you want to toe the line. Like, and that's what bothers me, because like black lives are not equated with the same amount of value that it should be. So people have no problem ending a black life, but the actual person who killed your brother happens to be a police officer, and he happens to be a different color complexion, but you're not going to go step out there for that. But you will kill 3 or 5 black people for what? It doesn't make any sense. Like,
not too happy about Paul Birch. Drama, and more drama in the life of little Honeycomb Jones.
Facts.
After being on the run for numerous months, he finally decides to return home. Quickly though, right after his 14th birthday, he's arrested by Mobile County sheriffs. He was in for some potentially serious time, but thankfully the judge was lenient and only gave him 3 years. So from ages 14 to 17, he spent his every day and night in the Strickland Youth Center. Although it may sound miserable, for many youth offenders, it's actually a very positive experience.
To be honest, if you come from dilapidated environments, like you sleep on the floor because there's only 1-bedroom apartment, there's barely any food. For you as a juvenile going to a facility like that where you only have 1 cellie and you're getting good meals, you're going to school, you're drinking water, like, you know what I'm saying? That's actually kind of a step up.
Center. Although it may sound miserable, for many youth offenders, it's actually a very positive experience. Firstly, their living experience in the youth center may be better than it ever was growing up. But more importantly, as Charleston White explains it, it can provide structure and discipline that they've never had before.
But if you put the in any kind of institution, any kind of structured environment, structured program, they will flourish. They flourish in a structured environment.
But unfortunately, after they're done with their...
And to be honest with you, that's actually just how regular humans are. Like, you put some structure in front of them, give them a routine. We flourish in something like that. But especially as a juvenile, I don't mean humans per se, but I want to say that juveniles, anybody under 18, and that all falls under the lines of parenting. So like, if you guys aren't doing the right parenting at home, these are where your children are going to end up. Let's be real.
Flourish. They flourish in a structured environment.
But unfortunately, after they're done with their sentence, they're often thrown right back to the environment that got them there. And this often entails running with the same friends that they used to run with. For little Honeycomb, he was thrown right back into chaos. With both parents locked up and an aunt who hates him for paralyzing her son, you can only imagine. So after being released at 17, he moved.
So we definitely understand right now that, so when he shot his cousin, he didn't die. He was paralyzed. All right, cool. So you can't move in with her because, yeah, they don't like you no more. That makes sense.
Son, you can only imagine.
That makes sense.
So after being released at 17, he moved in with his grandparents in the heart of Happy Hills. And as you would expect, he went right back to hanging with his day one friends in the hood. As kids, Honeycomb was always the bad one in the group, but now that they were grown, they were all on the same timing.
Okay. Oh, okay.
With young Honeycomb, Det, and Stank walking the streets, you never knew what could go down. And sometimes bad situations could occur at any time and for any reason. That takes us to December 12th, 2011.
Okay.
It's a chilly winter dawn and Honeycomb and Det are walking through the neighborhood with nothing to do. So at 5:45, they decide to head to the community rec center. As they're walking down Center Street, Det notices a random man standing by his car. So for whatever reason, he walks up to the man and sparks a conversation. Honeycomb thinks Det's just being friendly, but actually he has other plans on his mind. So Honeycomb stands back as Det and the man are having a conversation by his car. Then, in the middle of the conversation, Det whips out a blicky and says, "Run me your pockets." The man is hesitant and is slowly fumbling around, and that's when Det runs out of patience.
Wow.
After hitting him once in the shoulder, he begins to run through his pockets. He then discovers that the man has nothing, so he and Honeycomb run their separate ways.
Okay. Man, you got to be aware of your surroundings and the people you hang out with, man. Like, you think you're talking to somebody, you was in jail the whole time. This is such a crazy situation. Like, Honeycomb has been in jail this whole time. He don't know if he know that man like that. He was like, "Oh, I'm gonna hang back. This is what's up." Like, that's crazy. We're involved in an unwitting felony. That's just insane.
Once in the shoulder, he begins to run through his pockets. He then discovers that the man has nothing, so he and Honeycomb run their separate ways. Thankfully, the man survives after being rushed to the hospital. And while he's recovering, police show up to ask him some questions. Who did this? What do they look like? And what were they wearing?
As they should.
And for whatever reason, the man gives them a simple description. It was 2 young teenagers from the neighborhood, and that's all I know. Believe it or not, Honeycomb's reputation was already so bad that police instantly thought it was him.
Damn.
So after finding his whereabouts, they instantly decided that he was a suspect. Damn, that's cold. The next day, Honeycomb's grandparents would get a knock on the door, and here we are again. Honeycomb is arrested for first-degree robbery and assault with a deadly weapon. After being taken in for questioning, police pretty much offered him an easy way out. "We know you weren't alone when this happened, so give us up who you were with and we'll let you go." Most teenagers in this situation would start squealing like Master Splinter and singing like Alicia Keys. But Honeycomb was already tougher than nails and realer than real, so he decided to not say a word. So as a result, the teenager was facing a long time in prison for something that he didn't do. He was willing to take it on the chin to stick to the street code and to...
Now, I ain't gonna lie to you. I want to say that's some real dude shit. Usually, we say real nigga shit, but but to be honest with you, you snitching on somebody else in that predicament, that environment, is not the move to go to. Like, they already arrested you and said you did it, so that lets you know already they don't have the right information. So maybe you shutting up and taking it to trial, you can beat it because obviously you didn't do it. So, like, I don't know. I think he made the right decision. Like, I don't know if it's about street code per se, but I know in an investigation, you don't want to give them things they don't have. Like, let's be real. Like, come on now, let's go back though. Let's see what they're talking about.
For something that he didn't do. He was willing to take it on the chin to stick to the street code and to stay loyal to his day one homie. Well, fast forward a few months and it's Honeycomb's first official court appearance on March 4th, 2012. During the hearing, the prosecutors try to get him to implicate on his friend once again, but he refuses to do so. He decides to remain solid while Det is back home hoping he doesn't squeal on him. So when Det gets word that Honeycomb stayed solid, he decides to go shoot some dice to celebrate.
Okay. That's how you gotta do it. Yeah, it's my man's. Yeah, we get solid. Hold on, it's my man.
He decides to remain solid while Det is back home hoping he doesn't squeal on him. So when Det gets word that Honeycomb stayed solid, he decides to go shoot some dice to celebrate.
I ain't mad at you. I ain't mad.
It's 7:30 p.m. on Selmer Street in Happy Hills. Everyone is outside on the block while Det is on the porch in a dice game.
Okay.
During the dice game, an OG named Anthony Jenkins gets upset. He tells Det that he owes him $5 for losing, and he gets in his face.
$5. See, this is why I was younger. I shot dice. You know what I'm saying? I love shooting dice. Dice is fun. I ain't gonna lie. But I had to put that habit down because of the altercations that do come from it. Let's be real with you. Like, I remember one time I was at a dice game. I was up in this dude, pause. But I was on him. I think I was up like maybe $200-$300. I'm done smoking weed. Like, I was like, oh, my blunt gone. I'm finna go to the store real quick, get some backwoods, be right back. They was like, you bet not leave. And they whipped out Blick on me. Like, you know what I'm saying? I was like, oh shit. Okay. I was like, I just threw the money. I'm like, you can have this. I'm gonna go smoke. Like, nobody care about this shit. It's supposed to be for fun. But a lot of these people out here be shooting because this is how they make a living. Like, this is how they You know what I mean? It's crazy. Dice game.
In a dice game.
I stopped that shit.
During the dice game, an OG named Anthony Jenkins gets upset. He tells Det that he owes him $5 for losing, and he gets in his face. Det refuses to hand over the $5 bill, and that's when Anthony gets extra heated. He whips out a blick from his waistline and makes a terrible decision.
That's sad.
Yet another devastating loss for Honeycomb and the whole Happy Hills. Det was only...
So let me get this straight. Your man's over here commits a crime. You take it on the chin. You doing the time for that crime. And then the same day or maybe later that day or maybe next week, he goes to a dice game and loses his life. And now you're doing the sentence on a crime you didn't commit for a man who's not even alive. Like I said, this is why I watch hood vlogs and like that, because it's like better than like reading an urban novel. Like you can't make these stories up. You really can't.
Yet another devastating loss for Honeycomb and the whole Happy Hills. Det was only 17 and lost his life to a 40-year-old over a $5 dice game.
Damn.
Oh, and here's the craziest part. Anthony was let out on a $2,500 bond, meaning that he posted $250 and went right back home to Happy Hills, putting not only his life, but everyone else in the area's life in jeopardy as well.
That's wild.
Man, Mobile is really something else. From questionable police activity to judges making blatantly dangerous decisions, it all just seems like a trap. For Honeycomb, he was absolutely devastated by the news of his best friend passing. He was already facing a decade in prison, so losing his best friend only added to his problems. I mean, I can't even imagine being in a jail cell for something I didn't do and then receiving this kind of news. But on the other hand, it did bring an interesting scenario to the table. Now that Det was gone, Honeycomb could potentially say that it was him who did the robbery. To many guys like Gangsta Williams, this is a no-brainer, but to Honeycomb, he would never go against the code of the streets. So instead, he took his lick and decided to go for a 4-year plea deal in Alabama prison. Although this may sound like a good deal, his time in prison was no joke. In fact, he describes horrible conditions in the facility and even says that he could only shower once every 3 days.
Yo, y'all don't even know about the living conditions of like jails in other states. That's some real shit. Like they have actually the showers over there be like up to your ankles and it'd be poop. It'd be crazy, bro. I don't recommend anybody go to jail. Seriously. Like, don't commit crimes.
Conditions in the facility, and even says that he could only shower once every 3 days.
Yeah, big bird bath.
You took a bath every 3 days?
Yeah, every 3 days on blood. But you know, it probably have been like go a day, then skip a day. But then it be so much going on. Like they might hit some in the cold and get into a fight. They won't even let her take them, you know. They'll just handle stuff for real. Like that's what they got going on now.
So how do you keep your hygiene? Like, do they give you deodorant, or is there certain things you got to do to keep, you know, your body right from smelling a certain way?
Water now. I used to bathe in the sink and shit. You know, I ain't
told you bird bath. Like, you know what I'm saying? That's when you bathe in the sink and then, you know, clean yourself up, and you're in a room with another individual. He just turns his head because you got to get kind of naked to do it, obviously. Like I said, jail conditions aren't conducive for anybody who likes to live good.
Your body right from smelling a certain way.
Or even live like a human, by the way.
water now. I used to bathe in the sink and shit. You know, I ain't tripping. I ain't fucked up about it.
Like none of that made you like go insane at all at a period of time?
Nah, I got mad a lot of times, but only reason I was getting mad, it wasn't about me being in the cell. It was about me not taking a shower. When I really wanted to take a shower, and them would be like, nah, y'all can't take nothing today to jail on lockdown. And they be like the third day.
He was willingly sustaining these horrible conditions, all because he wouldn't tell on his friend. Definitely couldn't be me.
You know, that's crazy too. Like I said, he has to go through all that, and your man isn't even here anymore. So you can't even go back if you wanted to snitch. I'm not advocating snitching, or advocating not snitching. I'm very neutral. But I'm saying, you can't even, after your man passed, you can't even go back and go to the courts and be like, hey, yo, check it out. It was actually him. Like, you know what I mean? You can't do none of that. You got to just take that whole situation on the chin. And I respect that he did, though, but it's just a weird circumstance, you know?
maintaining these horrible conditions, all because he wouldn't tell on his friend. Definitely couldn't be me, but I do respect him for sticking to his code. Sadly, while he was enduring these horrible conditions, he would also lose some family members on the streets.
Oh, yeah.
On June 16, 2013, his cousins Tyvone and Timberly Jones would lose their life in a car accident in Happy Hills. These two are forever remembered in the neighborhood, and many people have them tatted in commemoration. But this was yet more losses for Honeycomb to deal with while sitting in a disgusting prison. But if anyone in the world could shoulder these blows, it would be Mr. Little Honeycomb Jones.
Makes sense. Facts.
Well, now we move on to December of 2015, when Little Honeycomb is finally released. When Honeycomb gets home, all he wants to do is turn his life around. The streets cause nothing but devastation in prison time, so it's definitely time for something new. So for fun, Honeycomb hops in the studio and quickly realizes that he's actually a talented rapper. He figures that this may possibly be his ticket out of the hood. On top of this, while he was in prison, some of his childhood friends were seeing success away from the streets. Firstly, his friend and Happy Hills native Jaquaski Tart was drafted by the 49ers.
In the 2015 draft,
My Niners!
the San Francisco 49ers select Jaquaski Tart, defensive back, San
Oh, my
Jaquaski was giving
Niners!
hope to everyone he grew up with and was also giving back to the community.
Me growing up in this city, I experienced a lot growing up, and I just know what a lot of kids, I can relate to what a lot of kids been going through, and I just hope they get out.
But believe it or not, Jaquaski was not the only success story at the time. Another childhood friend of Honeycomb was becoming a successful rapper in California. This would be Happy Hills / Sacramento Zone.
Yeah, hey, shout out OMB Peasy, man. You know what I mean? E40 signed you. I'm a Bay Area native, so of course we know who you are. Shout out you.
Becoming a successful rapper in California. This would be Happy Hills / Sacramento Zone OMB Peasy. But Peasy wasn't the only rapper, as his childhood friends Rollo Rodriguez and No Cap were seeing success as well. Not to mention that Det's little brother Trey Baby was doing local comedy shows. The point is that the small city of Mobile was seeing a shining light, and Honeycomb knew that if they could do it, he could too. So he started dedicating himself to rapping, and it took off right away. Under the rap name Honeycomb Brazy, he was cultivating some underground buzz. Could this be the way that he finally turns his life around?
Okay.
Well, I don't know what you expected, but now we head to February 1st, 2016. It's a late Sunday afternoon, and Honeycomb heads to the Woodlands Apartments in the nearby suburb of Whistler. He's heading to a woman's apartment.
I'm sorry. I wasn't familiar with how extensive Honeycomb Brazy was getting into with other people. All I know was this situation. I brought it up like 8 times already, but I thought it was going to be this situation every time. But it's this situation. Finally, I guess. But it's all tragic at the end of the day.
Heads to the Woodlands Apartments in the nearby suburb of Whistler. He's heading to a woman's apartment who happens to be the girlfriend of his best friend Stank. However, on this afternoon, Stank is at work and Honeycomb doesn't tell him that he's pulling up. Obviously, this is suspicious, but Honeycomb claims that he's only going over there to collect some money and possibly spark up. But here's how it actually goes. At 7 o'clock, she lets him into the apartment and they're doing whatever for over an hour. They think at 7 o'clock to collect some money.
The reason why, if you guys remember on the earlier part of the stream when I said what the story is he went over there to go actually sell her some weed and then leave. Like, that's the story. And that's your cousin's girl, so maybe you want to chill and spark some, you know what I mean, for a second and leave. That was the story that we heard. Now I'm hearing something different, so let's go.
Obviously, this is suspicious, but Honeycomb claims that he's only going over there to collect some money and possibly spark up. But here's how it actually goes. At 7 o'clock, she lets him into the apartment and they're doing whatever for over an hour. They think nothing of it, but then at 8 o'clock, they get a loud knock on the door. As it turns out, Stank gets home earlier than expected and sees Honeycomb's car in the driveway. At first, he's just confused why Honeycomb is there, but then after no one responds to the door, he begins getting suspicious. So he bangs harder on the door and still nobody opens up. So now he's pissed and he uses all his force to kick the door down. Boom! He storms in the living room, and right there is Honeycomb and his girlfriend. An argument starts as Stank aggressively questions his friend as to why he's at his girlfriend's apartment. Honeycomb responds by saying that he's only there to collect money and nothing shady is going on.
Yeah.
Stank doesn't buy it, the two start tussling, and that's when Honeycomb whips out. What in the world just happened? At this moment, time completely freezes. Stank and Honeycomb were best friends from the sandbox. How in the world could this have happened? Firstly, why was Honeycomb really at her apartment? If he was really just there to collect some money, why would Stank have reacted like that? And secondly, was Stank really that much of a threat for Honeycomb to respond with his weapon? Lots of important questions that only Honeycomb can answer.
No, my home, but
That was your friend.
yeah, my partner. I love my partner. He just tripped that day. You feel me? It ain't nothing like that. You know, if I could take it back, I'd take it back.
Obviously, he sees it as a self-defense situation, and he also states that he never messed with a girl like that.
Hey, in the hood, we don't know which way. We kind of know, but let me know in the comments what you guys think about what you think might have transpired that led to this whole situation and the tragic death of, you know what I mean, Honeycomb's cousin.
He sees it as a self-defense situation, and he also states that he never messed with a girl like that.
So you didn't even hit. You were just telling her. You know what I'm saying? You were just in her house type shit. You ain't
Yeah, about grandma, granddad, I ain't never her. On my dead little brother Myra, never her. You feel me? Really solid. It's just that how that happened.
Do you guys believe him or not? Let me know in the comments.
I don't know, man. Isn't it always weird how somebody always... I learned to actually question somebody a little bit more when they say, on my granddaddy, on my grandmama, on it. You're like, bro, like, I don't even believe you, bro. Like, you put it on too many people. Like, if you was really reputable and really yourself, like, we know you. Like, you don't have to put it on nothing like that. Like,
really solid. It's just that how that happened.
Do you guys believe him or not? Let me know in the comments. Either way, just days after the incident, Honeycomb was arrested for second-degree murder.
makes sense.
Typically in the South, this is considered self-defense, but when you flee the scene and fail to call 911, it is suspicious. So just months after getting out, the 22-year-old rapper was now facing life in prison. Now, the very start of a bright rap career was looking like the end of it. But Honeycomb fought the case for months trying to prove his innocence. And after a year of deliberation, the prosecution finally decided to drop the charges in favor of self-defense.
Okay.
This is because Stank wasn't on the lease of his girlfriend's apartment, meaning that it was considered a home invasion. So under Alabama's stand your ground law, Honeycomb was completely justified in his actions. Wow,
That's crazy. That's crazy. That's what happens when you hire paid attorneys.
Alabama's stand your ground law, Honeycomb was completely justified in his actions. Wow, this is a cold world, and I really feel bad for Stank's family. Overall, this was a terrible situation, but what do you guys?
That man Stank was 24 years old when he lost his life just because he kicked the door. And like, you got to really realize what type of female you're around. Like, if she wants to go and let somebody else do something, then let it just be that. I understand that it could be your cousin, like it could be your brother, but yeah, you actually having the presence of mind to chill out and sit back and ponder maybe probably would have saved your life, brother. I'm sorry. Anyway, R.I.P. Stank, man. Let's keep it going.
I really feel bad for Stank's family. Overall, this was a terrible situation, but what do you guys think? Was Honeycomb disloyal, and is what he did wrong? While the loss of Stank had much bigger implications than Honeycomb ever imagined. For him, he wanted to chalk it up to the streets and just leave it as an unfortunate situation.
Nope.
He saw Stank as a brother and truly wishes it never went down like this. But to Stank's friends and family, what Honeycomb did was completely unforgivable.
Yep.
Firstly, linking with his girl behind his back and then resorting to claiming his life. So while Honeycomb was in jail fighting his case, Stank's family was plotting for revenge if he ever got out. In fact, they were making everyone on the streets take a side. You're either rocking with us or you're rocking with him, but there's no in between. So when Honeycomb was released from jail, he quickly realized who was on his side and who wasn't. And what he started to realize is that a lot of people who used to be close to him were no longer on his side. Now, what if I told you that it wasn't for moral reasons, like they didn't leave his side because of what he did to Stank? And instead, they chose the other side for a completely different reason. It's because Stank's family is no ordinary family. In particular, Stank had an uncle by the name of Darren Southall.
Oh no, I didn't know that was his cousin. Sorry, that was his nephew. That was his nephew. Oh yeah, we all know about the Southalls in Alabama. Yeah, let's go ahead and go. Yeah, now everything's adding up.
For a completely different reason. It's because Stank's family is no ordinary family. In particular, Stank had an uncle by the name of Darren Southall, also known as Dee. And this guy is easily the most feared man in Mobile history.
We know the South.
So actually, we'll have to dive into his story. Sorry, we'll get back to that beat in a second. Darren grew up in Happy Hills and was always known as a serious hustler in the street.
Yo, before we get into this nigga background, like, we know, like, bro, like, this man was a millionaire, like, and really had goons type shit, like, at like 25. He was like the Birdman, like Alabama. It was crazy.
In a second. Darren grew up in Happy Hills and was always known as a serious hustler in the streets. And in the 1990s, he was able to turn his hustling ways into a major organization. It was known locally as Darren Southall Distribution, but it was pretty much the BMF of the South. And no, I'm not exaggerating, because it's estimated that he was sitting on $24 million cash. With this kind of money, he could pretty much call any shot he wants to in the whole southern United States. And because of this, he was extremely feared in Mobile, even to the point where he was allowed to snitch. No, seriously, listen to this.
Like, that's what made it so wild. Like, he was so feared. He was literally a paid informant by the FBI, and nobody cared and did anything because he was so feared. It was so weird that I never understood.
Even to the point where he was allowed to snitch. No, seriously, listen to this. Dee successfully operated under the radar until 2001, when the state government began investigating him. He had numerous mansions and supercars throughout the state, but his tax returns didn't show much income. None of it was adding up, so they decided to look into his operations, and here is what they found. They discovered his distribution and the music label he was using to launder his money. So as a result, in 2003, his entire operation was taken down and he was looking at 30+ years in prison. Everyone in Mobile thought the street legend was cooked, but Dee had other plans on his mind. He decided to tell on 2 of his co-defendants and give up the music label that was laundering his money. In return, his sentence was reduced to a couple years and he was back in Mobile.
See, this is crazy, right? I've never been in a situation where I've seen the kingpin get arrested for the crimes and then snitch on the underlings and then be able to come home. That's actually new when it comes to mafioso situations. That's new. I've never heard of that.
On his mind. He decided to tell on 2 of his co-defendants and give up the music label that was laundering his money. In return, his sentence was reduced to a couple years and he was back in Mobile in no time.
Wow.
He's still known as one of the biggest rats in history, but for whatever reason, Mobile just didn't care. He actually went right back to the hood and rebuilt his distribution from the ground up. You might be thinking, how is this possible? But I'm trying to tell you that in the South, nobody cares that you snitched if you have money or you're feared. So after some years of rebuilding his major distribution, Dee became the king of Mobile once again. According to some, a rat was running the city. I'm not exaggerating when I say that Dee was like royalty in Happy Hills, as nobody would dare to go against him or ever touch him. For example, look at this picture of him and Honeycomb back in the day. They used to be locked in, but after he claimed the life of his nephew Stank, Dee wanted all the smoke. He didn't want to hear any excuses and he was not willing to negotiate. And because he had all of the money and power, most of Mobile decided to take his side. Oh, and not to mention that there was allegedly a 7-figure bounty on Honeycomb's head. This obviously put Honeycomb at a major disadvantage, especially because he never knew who was willing to cross him.
You know, it's crazy too, because I always told people back in the day, like, or I was told by my OGs, like, it costs money to go to war. You need ammunition, you need soldiers, you need lawyer money, you need bail money, you need a lot of things, man. So if you go to war with somebody who's 24 million up and you just a fresh young dude released from prison, you had a very severe disadvantage in this game of chess that you're playing. So let's see how it happened, because I do believe that Honeycomb Brazy signed a deal with Rap-A-Lot Records Not that mob ties, Rap a Lot. That's under the original J Prince, not his son, the junior, which actually could strengthen his security, because mob ties, obviously, in the name itself, it implies a lot. So let's go.
Honeycomb at a major disadvantage, especially because he never knew who was willing to cross him. Like, if any of Honeycomb's friends wanted to collect Dee Dee's bag, it was pretty much over for him.
Yeah.
So in order to protect himself, he was forced to draw serious lines in the sand. You're either rocking with me or going over there, but I cannot have snakes in my circle.
I feel it.
Because of this, he now had to be very careful who he was hanging with and where he was going. And to keep things organized, all of his homies took the name RN4L, and I'm sure you can figure out what that means. Anyone claiming RN4L was willing to protect and die for Honeycomb, even though they were up against Thanos. So Dee Dee Southall versus Honeycomb Brazy was the new major beef in Mobile.
Okay.
Things were about to get crazy, and it was all dependent on...
Yeah, it was great. Like, man, I heard a lot of stuff that was going on during his rise to mob ties, and with his music. Like, it's crazy. I think he's about to get into it right now, but I believe the man got shot like 8 times, like twice in the head. Like, it was crazy.
Things were about to get crazy, and it was all dependent on Honeycomb coming home. Well, it's November of 2017, and Honeycomb officially beats his case and returns to Mobile.
Okay.
He knows he's up against a powerful boss, but he's way too prideful to leave his city.
Okay.
So he goes back to Mobile to pursue his rap career, but quickly things would get spicy. Just days after being released, Honeycomb is shot 8 times, including once in the head. His friends rush him to the hospital, and the doctors don't believe he'll make it.
Damn.
But after a successful surgery, he's placed into a coma where he stays for 9 days. During this period, the doctors tell his family that he will wake up, but he'll never walk again. But miraculously, after waking up from a coma, his legs work just fine. Like I told you guys, Honeycomb is the type of dude who can survive any battle.
I ended up getting that first week and get hit up. So, you know, I was in the coma and shit, but I had shook that shit though.
However, after this incident is when he woke up and realized that his ops are not playing.
Yeah.
In fact, this is when he receives word that there's over $1 million on his head. To all of us at home, this would terrify us, but Honeycomb talks about it like it's nothing.
Man, so when you speak on having money on your head, can you speak on, like, what goes through your mind? Do you lose sleep over that?
Hell no, I want to dream. Wow, Martin Luther King, I want to dream.
Not only is he not worried about his ops, he also decides to troll them online.
I don't really like that, man. I'm Big Stepper, bro. On soul, I'm Big Stepper, man. On gang, they know that. That's why they trying to kill me. Because they know what's going on with me. That's why they trying to kill me, man. On blood, they know. But Brazy's a real stepper. We got to get him before he get us. He killed our brother already. He beat the murder charge. You need to get walked down. That's just what it is, man.
Obviously, Honeycomb was ducking no smoke, but
I ain't gonna lie. You gotta watch what you portray, or how you know what I mean, how you come across on the internet. This is why I'm not really a big fan of doing live streams, because I don't want somebody to take what I say in a negative light, and now all of a sudden they're looking for me. Like, it's crazy, man. I just want everybody to just get some money and chill out, man. Raise a family or something. But you know, I was young too. So I understand. That's why I don't judge nobody. I was young too. Trust me.
No, that's just what it is, man.
Obviously, Honeycomb was ducking no smoke, but as his career progressed, it only made sense to elevate. And thankfully, his first opportunity to leave would come quickly. After a couple of his songs went viral, Honeycomb was hit up by a major boss in Atlanta. This would be a man known as Rollo Fambo, one of the biggest hustlers in history. Rollo saw potential in his rap career and wanted to get him off to Atlanta. So immediately, Brazy hopped on I-65 to head for the big city. There, he spent his days and nights in a professional studio recording banger after banger. In the process, he started to get tens of millions of views and noticed by a nationwide audience.
Yo, I didn't even know this part of the story. Like, you know what I mean? I rock with my dude, but like, we just knew who he was, like, type shit. Like, we didn't even, I never went to YouTube and was like, oh, you had 8 million? Oh, you had, like, I didn't even know. Shout out, bro. Man, that's
crazy. In the process, he started to get tens of millions of views and noticed by a nationwide audience. But more importantly, he was out of Alabama and he was rolling with a boss even bigger than Dee Dee. This was honestly a match made in heaven, and Brazy was on his way up. But then out of nowhere, everything would come crashing down.
Tonight, a major raid on a Southwest Atlanta home, and we now know that house belongs to an Atlanta rapper named Rollo.
Rollo's team tells me he's being targeted and is sitting in jail wrongfully.
Oh yeah, I forgot. Yeah, Rollo got convicted for having the 300 P's. You know what I mean? Whatever. But yeah, I didn't know that Brazy was signed to him. So yeah, that's obviously going to be a crazy detriment to his situation. So I think that might have made him have to go back to Mobile. Ooh, I didn't even know this part. It's crazy. Hey, shut up for rock. Hey, everybody out here, rock, man. Hold on, we're gonna get over here with it. Hold on, we're gonna get over here with it. Hey, man, shout out for rocking with Ink T to the G, man. Who you think it gonna be? We're finding out new information about old beefs, old everything, whatever. And now we get new information. So now it makes sense. So thank y'all for rocking out with me, man. So let's keep it going, though. You know what I mean? I ain't gonna waste no more time with y'all. But let's keep it lit.
Named Rollo.
Rollo's team tells me he's being targeted and is sitting in jail wrongfully accused. But a federal criminal complaint lays out how investigators allegedly connected Rollo to the operation. Before we dig any deeper into this, let's tell you who 23-year-old Terrell Davis, aka Rollo, is.
Oh God, that's about Rollo. Rollo, that man, boy.
The artist has a huge social media.
Yo, hold on. I ain't gonna. Nah, I gotta give you the spoiler alerts. Rollo is that dude, top boss goon, like how he used to say in the songs. Like, this man was 22 years old, owned his whole projects, had him on a workout situation where the money was coming in. I'm not trying to be extra about the information, but pretty much he owned his whole project. Like, I mean, everybody was working and he was signing rappers, man. So yeah, but you did get caught and you've been locked. So anyway,
deeper into this, let's tell you who 23-year-old Terrell Davis, aka Rollo, is. If you're not familiar with Atlanta's hip-hop scene, the artist has a huge social media presence and following, with more than 200,000 monthly listeners on Spotify and song collaborations with T.I., 2 Chainz, Future, Gucci Mane, and so many others. And now, criminal complaint alleges the rapper, who's called this apartment complex in Atlanta home, a complex just raided yesterday, is the leader of a gang referred to as Famerica, a name Rollo regularly uses to refer to his music team. But according to the complaint, the investigation dates back to December, when investigators stopped 3 vans leaving Fulton County Airport. Inside one, they allegedly found 520 pounds of worth about $1 million on the street. Rollo wasn't inside the van, but 3 people arrested were allegedly connected to him, according to investigators.
Now I know what you're thinking. Is this how HoneyKomb went out?
Nah, hell no.
No, thankfully he was not included in the investigation or the indictment.
Exactly.
However, Rollo's takedown was still bad news for HoneyKomb. Now that hanging in Atlanta was too hot, he needed to go somewhere else.
Big facts.
Sadly, he would go right back to the Honeycomb, no pun intended. Right back to the city where his ops want to hurt him and police hate him too. So as you...
That's literally what I've been saying for a long time. A lot of rappers who get a taste of stardom, get a taste of a bag, getting a good situation. And then when that slows up, they have to go back to what they know. And that's the neighborhood they come from, the original environments. They call it the trappings, but I didn't want to say it like that because we ain't talking about trapping. But yeah, that's pretty much what it is. And it's sad, man, but let's keep it lit.
Right back to the city where his ops want to hurt him and police hate him too. So as you would expect, his return to Mobile would not go so well. Sadly, right after returning to Mobile, he caught a serious gun charge, a good old felon in possession of a weapon, which in the feds holds an average of a 3-year sentence. However, this was a state case and the judge decided to give him 15 years in prison. Yes, you heard that correctly.
I'm sorry.
15 years in prison for Honeycomb Brazy.
I'm sorry.
Right as his career was progressing, it was looking like...
This is why I've always been concerned about being a felon with a firearm. That law right there, I'm not talking about me. I'm not a felon, so I don't worry about that. But I'm talking about like Tory Lanez, like things like that. Like that one charge right there, depending on the state, the criteria for the minimum sentence can be very high. Like you can get a football number. They just told my man right here he gonna get 15 years for his first charge of being a felon with a firearm. That's wild.
sentence. However, this was a state case and the judge decided to give him 15 years in prison. Yes, you heard that correctly. 15 years in prison for Honeycomb Brazy. Right as his career was progressing, it was looking like it was pretty much over. For whatever reason, the Alabama judge wanted to completely wash him away. So sadly, Honeycomb was off to prison for a long, long time. I cannot imagine how down and depressed he was after receiving the news. Oh, and it even gets worse. Honeycomb was placed in a prison cell with his own father.
Y'all shared the same cell?
Okay.
Yeah,
How does that get even worse? That actually sounds like something that would be beneficial. Like unfortunately, you had to bump your head the hardest way to get that amount of time to be locked in a cell with your dad. But you haven't seen your dad got a 20-year piece, like, you know what I'm saying? So at least you get to at least see him for a little bit. That's the worst silver lining I could ever think of. That's like the worst silver lining. Man.
Receiving the news. Oh, and it even gets worse. Honeycomb was placed in a prison cell with his own father.
Y'all shared the same cell?
Yeah, we slept in the same cell. Match count at West Jail.
Okay.
How does that work? Like, did y'all make it like that, or did he just?
No, they just put me in the cell with him. So when I got out of lockup, they put me right in the cell with my daddy. So I went in there with him, we banging.
Yo, this is insane. So I can only imagine the conversations y'all just had.
I ain't gonna lie to you. I'm not sure how the mobile or Alabama prison system works or the jail system works. I don't know if they did it because of last names or whatever, but that is something very weird, right?
We banging.
Yo, this is insane. So I can only imagine the conversations y'all just having in there, just talking.
Yeah, we have real conversations. Like I got money on my head.
Imagine sitting in a cell with your dad and telling him that there's money on your head.
Can't let him do me like that while I'm doing life. So I was like, hell yeah, man. I got your pop with the whoop.
And to make matters worse, Honeycomb would lose yet another friend while sitting in a cell. October 21st, 2020, 8:40 a.m. A local comedian named Trey Baby is sitting in his parents' living room.
Man, I forgot about Trey Baby. That's crazy. We get plagued with so many rappers dying, so many people dying on a day-to-day basis. We forget 4 years ago, like, things were a little bit different. But it's crazy. The Philly comedian was losing his life. He lost his life. Like, sad, man.
A local comedian named Trey Baby is sitting in his parents' living room. That's when he hears a loud thud and a man comes running inside. The man finds him in the living room and makes a terrible decision. Trey was a day one friend of Honeycomb and a family member of Dead, but more importantly, he was an aspiring comedian who brought joy to anyone he came across.
Everybody really just shocked.
Sorry, that's what made it so crazy when we heard about the news. Like, he wasn't in the streets. He wasn't a stepper. He didn't have no ops. He wasn't on Instagram Live smoking whatever they do, the new generation do. Like, he didn't do anything, bro. Like, he was just a comedian. So we all was mystified by that because I don't think there was any arrests made as well. That was very confusing.
He was a day one friend of Honeycomb and a family member of Dead, but more importantly, he was an aspiring comedian who brought joy to anyone he came across.
Everybody really just shocked. Everybody hurt like deeply. Like, y'all really took somebody that wouldn't harm a fly.
Thomas was well on his way as a comedian known as Trey Baby. His family said he traveled a lot to neighboring cities, doing stand-up comedy shows and filming content for his YouTube channel. A young man chasing his dreams to fill many hearts with laughter.
We're just lost and we're confused on what happened. We don't know if it was just envy, if it was hate, or whatever the case may be.
This is why the incident is so puzzling. Trey was never in the streets and definitely never had beef with anyone. So the deliberate targeting had people wondering who was really behind this. And one of these people was Honeycomb, who made a dedication post on Facebook. He said that if he finds out who did this, yeah, you know the rest. Yet another loss while Honeycomb...
Let's go back and read what he actually said, though, because shout out Swamp Stories. We're not trying to get nobody indicted. But me personally, I'm curious, so I like to read the actual post. It says, I'm not going to say it for everybody. If you read it with me. I ain't going to try to get nobody arrested, so I'm just going to read it. To you know what I mean? To the necklace. You know what I mean? Never mind. First sentence got me. Never mind.
And one of these people was
All you gotta hear is I'm finna die about it. Never mind. All right, never mind. You got it, fam. You got it, gang. You got it, gang. I mean, I said I'm finna die about it.
HoneyKomb, who made a dedication post on Facebook. He said that if he finds out who did this, yeah, you know the rest. Yet another loss while HoneyKomb is sitting in a 6x9 cell. Obviously, this is devastating, but on the bright side, he would receive some positive news. His lawyers appealed his sentence, and a new judge granted him parole after 18 months.
Okay.
Man, thankfully.
Yo, you know how big that is? They gave you, what they say, 15 years, and then your lawyers are still working for you. I don't know about his financial standing at the time, but your lawyers were working, man. Send them like something in their Christmas bag, something like, you know what I mean? But so what they said is they appealed his decision, and after 18 months of serving a 15-year sentence, you get released. Bro, put that man on retainer.
And a new judge granted him parole after 18 months.
That's crazy.
Man, thankfully his career was back in his hands after.
Sorry, excuse me. I gotta fix this right here. Boom. It was acting funny on the other. There we go.
It almost slipped away. But interestingly enough, HoneyKomb was really not that happy to leave.
Okay.
Yeah, but I left out the cell with him though. I ain't really want to leave that. I already do another year with him for real. On everything, I ain't even lying.
Either way, the bottom line is that HoneyKomb was given a second chance at life. But
hold on. His previous statement might sound stupid, I guess, in general terms, but he was in a cell with his father who got sentenced to 20 years when he was, 12, 11? Like, you got to reunite with this man, live with him every day. It might have been some horrible conditions, but you got to reconnect with your father. So, like, you getting your case overturned or appealed, that's definitely a blessing. You get to leave, but also you get to see what you're leaving as well, which is your father. And that's, I can understand. There's a lot of mental struggles going on with his career. I ain't gonna hold you. A lot of
I already do another year with him for real. On everything, I ain't even lying.
Either way, the bottom line is that HoneyKomb was given a second chance at life, but it really wasn't that simple. His parole requirements were extremely strict and pretty much
hey, let's go through the parole requirements. They did my man greasy. You can't hang out with this person, can't go over here, can't travel here, can't do a show here, can't, like, they made it so they wanted him to be poor. Like, but I ain't gonna lie. I just know his story. I don't know what he's gonna say. He might give us some new insight. So let me shut what they call the fuck up. Let's hear it.
I ain't even lying.
Either way, the bottom line is that HoneyKomb was given a second chance at life, but it really wasn't that simple. His parole requirements were extremely strict and pretty much set up for him to fail. Firstly, he wasn't allowed to leave the state of Alabama for 15 years, which obviously puts...
I'm sorry. If you guys don't understand what's going on right now, this man still has $1 million bounty on his head for any street dude, like, to come take advantage of that. So check it out. So he's got $1 million bounty on his head. And what they say?
Firstly, he wasn't allowed to leave the state of Alabama for 15 years, which obviously puts him in danger. But on top of this, he wasn't allowed to be around any felons or in the proximity of any weapons.
You can't leave the region where people are trying to kill you, and you can't hang out with anybody who's going to try to protect you. Those are the rules that he came out to from prison.
But on top of this, he wasn't allowed to be around any felons or in the proximity of any weapons. So in my opinion, the state was pretty much setting him up to be victimized. And the craziest part is that technically, if he ever violates these rules, he's sent back to prison for 15 years. So HoneyKomb had a big dilemma on his hands. I'm either risking my freedom or I'm risking my life. It was only a matter of time before things go wrong one way or the other.
I feel it.
And that takes us to November 10th, 2020. To get out of Mobile, HoneyKomb and his boys head up I-65 to the city of Montgomery. Montgomery and Mobile are about 2.5 hours away, so it's an easy way to escape the beef. Now, this would be the case in most rivalries, but things are different when you have $1 million on your head. Well, once they get to Montgomery, they head to the mall so HoneyKomb can buy a new jersey. The Lakers jersey he bought in Mobile is too small, so he goes to the mall to get a new one. And once he gets the jersey, they all head to the barbershop to get fresh. This is when he makes a boneheaded decision. At 3 p.m., Honeycomb decides to go on Facebook Live outside of the barbershop. He shows his location and says he wants to give away his Lakers jersey.
Yeah, man, I bought a jersey. That bitch was too big. I bought a jersey that was too big. Autograph Honeycomb Kobe Bryant jersey to the really size.
And if you guys don't remember where we were at on the previous stream, when I said most of these people that end up losing their lives and things of that nature, it usually stems from the fact that they like to go on Instagram Live and let everybody know exactly where they're at the exact time. And if you're in if you're embroiled in a beef like this, there's no way there's $1 million on your head. You want to go IG Live, but he did.
And says he wants to give away his Lakers jersey.
Yeah, man, I bought a jersey. That bitch was too big. I bought a jersey that was too big. Autograph Honeycomb Kobe Bryant jersey to the really size. Yeah, man, it was too big, so I had to buy another one. I had to buy another one, man.
He stays on live for over an hour thinking nothing of it, but that's when things get hectic. Out of nowhere, shots start flying at his car. Bang! His friends instantly get up and start chasing the perpetrators down the street, and because of this, they instantly hop back in their car and speed away.
Now, this is actually very preventable. You could have not went through this at all. I mean, shout out to your friends, you know what I'm saying? When the situation transpired, like, they did what they had to do. But you're on parole. You're on probation. Like, you're not even supposed to be around these individuals in the first place or doing what you're doing. So, of course, what transpired next was going to happen.
Where shots start flying at his car. Bang! His friends instantly get up and start chasing the perpetrators down the street, and because of this, they instantly hop back in their car and speed away. Once they turn the corner, Honeycomb's friends run back to the car to check on him. They notice that he's hit, but he refuses to let them take him to the hospital.
Okay.
So instead, they go to...
You know why he refused to go to the hospital? He refused to go to the hospital because everything that he was doing was a violation that's going to send him back to where he was just recently released. So I would love to see what the alternative was for his actions.
It's that he's hit, but he refuses to let them take him to the hospital. So instead, they go to a family member's house in Montgomery and they bandage him up. Thankfully, he makes it just fine, but it does bring us back to an important question. Had his friends taken him back to the hospital, he could have been arrested for being around weapons. I'm assuming that this is what he was thinking, but his next actions are kind of puzzling. Directly after all of this unfolded, he decided to go right back onto Facebook Live and explain everything that happened.
Hold on. You went right back on IG Live the next day. You bet not be wearing that same jersey you was trying to get rid of. Come, we got to do better. Us as people, we have to do better. This is so frustrating sometimes when I do my reactions, because there's a lot of simple, avoidable situations not to even be in these situations. But let me know in the comments if you found the numerous ones that I did. But yeah, let's keep going.
Folded, he decided to go right back onto Facebook Live and explain everything that happened. As if his parole officer or the police can't watch this. Oh, and not to mention that the guys who just did this can see where he is.
None of y'all get hit. Are they not the back one that? That what you wore? The coach got deal with. I'm on this side. Yeah, we supposed to be dead. We supposed to be dead, home. Like, I don't respect it. Yeah. My thigh, well, yeah.
You know how many people I've seen lose their lives to people who said they don't respect the shooter or the people? You got to respect your ops, bro. Like, I ain't saying you got to fear them, but you got to respect them. Like, you know what I mean? You got to move accordingly when it's wartime. Like, this is not moving accordingly.
Like, I don't respect it. Yeah. My thigh, well, y'all know what's up, man. Hey, how you doing?
We still handsome.
How you doing?
We still handsome, bitch.
Even the people that are watching are trying to tell him that being on live is the dumbest
thing.
Y'all talking about me on live. I can do what I want to do. This my live. Y'all ain't got to be on that hoe watching me. We ain't running.
Stepping.
Ain't no running going on.
Obviously, going on live was the dumbest thing for Honeycomb to do, and it would bite him in the butt eventually. But to make matters worse, right after getting off live, he would make a Facebook post taunting the guys who did this. In the post, he even alludes to the idea that they were paid to do this. Man, I know I said that AR Ab was the dumbest criminal, but Honeycomb is making me rethink that.
Yeah, I'm on the fence.
Yet another close call for Honeycomb, but thankfully after this, more good things would happen to his career. The crazy incident went viral online and Sean Cotton got wind of it, so he invited him for an interview on Say Cheese, and Honeycomb would tell his entire life story. He shocked the world with his crazy stories and even went into detail about the shooting in Montgomery. His story was so intriguing that thousands of people decided to listen to his music. So as a result, his numbers went through the roof and he was contacted by a major label. This would be Houston's Rap-A-Lot Records, who were interested in signing him for millions of dollars. So they flew him to Houston and Honeycomb loved what he saw. And just like that, Honeycomb Brazy would be the next star on Rap-A-Lot Records.
Hello.
Things were on the up and up.
I don't know if you guys remember, but this little scene right here where he was in the car with the gold AK, that was a parole violation. He just still moves stupid after he signed rap. But I want you to win, man.
Honeycomb Brazy would be the next star on Rap-A-Lot Records.
I want you to win.
Things were on the up and up, and his career was about to take off to the next level. But in his roller coaster of a life, tragedy would of course strike.
Oh, yeah.
On December 1st, 2020, his friend Tykia Daniels would be targeted while pumping gas in Fairfield, Alabama. Whether or not this is connected to Honeycomb's beef, it shows that living in this state is absolutely crazy. Alabama is truly a wicked state, and Honeycomb really needed to leave. So this is when prosecutors say he made the bold decision to move to Houston.
Okay.
This way he was able to record with his label and of course be away from his beef.
Yeah.
But as you remember, this is a serious violation of his parole and can send him right back to prison.
Okay, so what the problem was is, I don't know if you guys understood what he said. When you're on probation parole, you can't leave the jurisdiction. That's I want to say a 90-mile radius. So him realizing there's $1 million bounty on his head, I just signed a record deal for millions, whatever whatever. He said, I want to protect my life, so I'm gonna move to over here, buy a house, live, and call my probation officer and say, hey, look, I can't live there. They want to kill me. And his probation officer said, short story shorter, you're violating. You're going to have to go back to jail for that 15 if you don't come back. So I feel like he was between a pimp and a hard place, because they want you to risk your life to abide by the rules they gave you for your release. But abiding by those rules put your life in jeopardy, and they're not trying to transfer your probation either. So let me know in the comments what you would do in that situation. This sounds like I said, I'm not trying to minimize it by saying like Cat Williams, oh, you between a pimp and a hard place, but you between a real rock and a hard place. Your life being taken from you, or sitting down in somebody's cell for 15 years. Like, that's a crazy decision as a young black male that he has to go through. Let's see what his decision was.
You remember, this is a serious violation of his parole and can send him right back to prison. Either way, Honeycomb decided to be judged by 12 rather than carried by 6. So in the meantime,
okay, so his decision said, fuck it, I'm gonna go on the run. The court's gonna judge me. I'd rather be judged by the courts than judged by these 12 bullets or 30 or 40 bullets. Let me know in the comments what you think about his decision, but I probably would have made that same decision if I was in those circumstances, So let me know what you guys think. Let's go.
Honeycomb decided to be judged by 12 rather than carried by 6. So in the meantime, he remained low-key and recorded his bangers. But even though he and his homies left Alabama, the beef was not done for DD. He knew that he couldn't reach Honeycomb under the protection of Jay Prince, but he still wanted revenge for his nephew Stank. So instead, he decided to orchestrate one of the worst catastrophes in Mobile history.
Yo, I've never seen no crazy shit like this before in my entire life, but what you're about to see coming forward right now was one of the most tragic things that I've seen in history. But if you were familiar with me on the previous stream, I said there is no level that you can't underestimate anybody. You could spit in somebody's face and you might think they want to spit back in your face, but no, they might be like, you know what? Let me cut the brakes to your car. Like, you know what I mean? You never know what the level, what the extreme of the level somebody else is going to take their version of disrespect, you know? So this is wild.
So instead, he decided to orchestrate one of the worst catastrophes in Mobile history. This is where things get really heavy. February 17th, 2021. It's a regular Wednesday evening in Happy Hills, and Honeycomb's grandparents are in their living room watching TV. That's when they hear a loud thump on the door. So his grandmother goes to the back of the house while the grandfather walks up to the door. Boom! That's when 3 men kick the door down and run inside. They then make a horrible decision. The men flee the scene, but that's only the beginning of it. Somehow the home explodes and catches on fire.
Okay, he didn't tell that story with as much justice as it should have been told. That beautiful melanin complected grandparents were in their residence minding their own business, and some assailants came in the home. It's sad, man. It's sad. They unalived the grandparents, but I guess when the bullets were flying, when they were unaliving them, they hit an oxygen tank that I believe the grandfather was using because he had emphysema, a certain situation. And then I guess with the smoke going, whatever the fumes going, the house blew up. So not only did these people come in and unalive your grandparents, they blew the whole house up. And you're in jail. That's got to be the craziest.
The men flee the scene, but that's only the beginning of it. Somehow the home explodes and catches on fire. The tragic incident puzzled investigators as they couldn't figure out what caused the fire. However, the ADA believes that the perpetrators exploded an oxygen tank, which led to an explosion. Due to its nature, it was obviously a high-profile case, but then it got even more complicated. They discovered that it was Honeycomb Brazy's grandparents, which went viral across the country.
We have learned that the two are the grandparents of a local well-known rapper. WKRG.
Yo, can you look at the flames right there, bro? Like, can you imagine being somebody incarcerated, sitting behind a cell, and you find out about the passing of your grandparents, and all you get is news-related footage, and what you're looking at is just fumes of smoke, plumes, or whatever you want to call it. That's got to be traumatizing.
We have learned that the two are the grandparents of a local well-known rapper. WKRG News 5's Nicolette Schleisman is live in the Happy Hills neighborhood tonight to tell us the very latest information.
No word from police.
By the way, that's Africa Town. From now on, we're going to call Happy Hills Africa Town, how they took the name.
Live in the Happy Hills neighborhood tonight to tell us the very latest information.
No word from police about what happened or why the fire started or how it started. And also, Mobile police are confirming that they are investigating this as a homicide. Now, we've also learned that, again, they were the grandparents of local rapper Honeycomb Brazy. He posted to Instagram a tribute to the two, saying he hates they got caught up in his business. The family says the two were the head of their family and took care of everyone. And witnesses tell us that they heard a boom and what sounded like shots around the time of the fire. This all happened around 6:30 last night on Dr. Thomas Avenue.
They took everything. My mom and my daddy, they was the head and the tail, the roots. They took everything from us. Everything. We would never be the same. It's wrong. They ain't deserve it.
And now the family is begging anyone with any sort of information to contact Mobile police. Reporting live in North Mobile, Nicolette Schleisman, WKRG News 5.
Out of everything, this would be the worst loss that Honeycomb ever had to endure. His grandparents didn't deserve this in a million years, and those who did this are completely ruthless. But as much as this hurt him, he wouldn't dare retaliate in the same manner.
Honeycomb Brazy has posted to Instagram about their deaths, posting today in part, quote, "It's expletive how they did my people, but I'll never do nothing to no old people or kids to get back. It just ain't me."
But the craziest part is that Honeycomb had intuition that this could possibly happen. In fact, he begged his grandparents over and over to move out of Mobile, but they didn't want to do so.
Which is true, actually. From what we know, he did tell his parents, like, I'm beefing. They have $1 million bounty on my head. And they said, you know what? That ain't got nothing to do with us. We gonna live here. We've been here for 50 years type shit. And they stayed. And that's got to weigh heavily on his soul. Like, let me know in the comments what you would do if that might have happened to you, like your grandparents, especially if you were gone. We watched the O Block situation and what happened when King Von lost T-Roy. You know what I mean? When he was locked up. When he came home, it was worse. But he's been free this whole time and saying, like, I'm trying to just do the music, I think. Or maybe there's behind the scenes. Let me know what you guys think about that, though.
The craziest part is it's over and over to move out of Mobile, but they didn't want to do so. Well, this horrible incident would not be solved for over a year, and in the meantime, Honeycomb's rivals were not done. On June 3rd, 2021.
Yo, I didn't know there was more after the grandparents. I ain't gonna lie. I thought it was kind of after. I don't know the story like that, so I'm glad y'all rocking with me. We getting the story.
And in the meantime, Honeycomb's rivals were not done. On June 3rd, 2021, his mother's house was targeted in the middle of the night. Thankfully, though, she wasn't there when this occurred.
A crime alert tonight. Terrifying moments for people on Clark Street in Mobile as they wake up to gunfire in the middle of the night.
NBC 15's Andrea Ramey obtained the surveillance footage there that captured the sound of those shots. Andrea, you've learned this shooting may be connected to Mobile rapper Honeycomb Brazy.
In this surveillance footage NBC 15 News obtained, you hear 5 shots fired on Clark Street at 2 in the morning.
They came back.
They keep shooting up your home.
And I don't even live here because I had to leave because of that. But them fresh bullets.
Tanisha Jones believes her home was.
You know what's crazy? I remember seeing this video during that actual interview that she did with the local news media. She actually said that wasn't the first time her house got shot up. She said the first time it was 5 shots. The second time it was 18. You know what I mean? Her house been getting shot up. That's why she said she wasn't here. She already moved. Like, her house been getting shot up. Like, they ain't playing no games with you, bro. Like, and this is why I said previously in my stream, I said, if you go to war with people, your money has to be correct. Like, you gotta, like I said, you have to have bail money, lawyer money, artillery money, soldier money, and get your family out the equation money. Like, people keep losing that part. Like, I definitely recommend reading The Art of War by Sun Tzu. They tell you how to maneuver, and certain people aren't doing it.
I had to leave because of that. But them fresh bullets.
Tanisha.
There's no way in the world you sign a record deal, you wearing $100,000 worth of chains, and your mama still living in the projects where people are beefing with you. There's no way that makes sense. Like, to me, at least. Let me know in the comments how you feel about that. Like if you made enough money to where you can wear $100,000 worth of jewelry, always in the elite cars, you always are in, you know what I mean, eating the best foods. Would you let your mother sit there in her apartment in the same neighborhood, or, you know what I mean, where you're beefing at, while you in a whole different city living good? That sounds wild to me. But let me know in the comments how y'all feel.
Morning.
They came back.
They keep shooting up your home.
And I don't even live here because I had to leave because of that. But them fresh bullets.
Tanisha Jones believes her home was the target. She wasn't home when the shots were fired, but had been at the home yesterday. Believes people saw her there.
They shot it up again. I can see them. I came here yesterday.
And those weren't there yesterday?
Not this glass, none of that.
A family 3 doors down woke when 2 bullets came into their home overnight. They declined to talk on camera. Jones says this isn't the first time her home's been shot. And how many times do you...
All right, man. Shout out Swamp Stories for doing this thing, man. I always love the fact that you give a lot of detail in the background of everything that's going on in that person's life that actually made him be that type of person that we see in front of us. So shout out, bro. Like, man, you have a major following. I love doing reactions to that. Shout out NT Gang, my MVPs. You always rock with me when we do this. But yeah, man, we already know about Honeycomb Brazy, so I'm waiting for some suggestions from the audience, you know what I'm saying, to let me know something else next to react to.